Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. We are getting another walloping of rain today on the south coast and a flood warning now for the North Shore Mountains. We'll talk to the mayor of the district of North Vancouver up first. And as cleanup continues in the Fraser Valley and the interior, we'll talk to the mayor of Princeton about what that is like and what they're preparing for. We're also asking you what's needed to help communities and homes recover. Plus, driving in this weather can be treacherous. We are taking your winter and wet weather driving tips after 12:30. I'm Michelle Elliott. Welcome to BC Today. First, to the tragedy amid all of this. There has been one fatality due to the high winds and stormy weather. RCMP say a woman was killed after being hit by a fallen tree in Chilliwack. It happened at Island 22 yesterday afternoon, and police say they found the woman with her two young children. Darren Clark is a nearby resident and was at the park yesterday. He says it was very windy.
There is definitely some dicey trees in here. They were here a few weeks ago to do some cutbacks. I guess they didn't get them all. It happens. It was really windy yesterday, big gust.
Yeah, describe the wind, because we were in a different part of the province, but
we were here at 7 a.m. and noon, and then my last walk at 3:30ish, and yeah, it was big gusts, so we just stayed basically to the dog park, and the last walk we did the big perimeter, but you could the trees just swaying.
And they kind of came up out of nowhere?
Kind of came up out of nowhere, so it's definitely a note to self to try to stay away on conditions like that.
Victim Services has been called to assist the woman's family. Fraser Valley RCMP say two bystanders called 911 and tried to help the 27-year-old, but sadly she died on scene. Family and friends plan on a gathering later this afternoon to remember her. In the meantime, the park does remain closed to the public. Meanwhile, Metro Vancouver and the Fraser Valley remain under an Environment Canada yellow warning, which means an additional 50 to 70 millimeters of rain is expected to fall in Coquitlam, Maple Ridge, and the North Shore by early tomorrow morning. Environment Canada says there may be a significant impact on rush hour traffic this afternoon, so keep that in mind, with possible outages as well. Mike Little is the mayor of the district of North Vancouver and joins me now. Mayor Little, thanks very much for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Michelle.
You know, thinking about the fatality in Chilliwack yesterday, your district, obviously a very heavily forested area as well. What goes through your mind when you hear about high winds and the dangers there?
A very tragic circumstance, and there's no question we've had a number of trees come down as well. The ground is absolutely saturated, and when you had the 50-kilometer-hour winds last night, we've had reports of several trees down over trails. So it's always a risk in these conditions.
Certainly. Right now, what are your biggest areas of concern?
We've been watching the lower Seymour River very closely over the last couple of days. We definitely approached flood level yesterday. We hit about 2.7 meters on the gauge, which we start to see flood-like conditions when we hit about 3 meters. And so it's we got fairly close, and then it stabilized and dropped down. We are still anticipating additional rain this afternoon that will give us a bit of a second peak tonight, but we're not expecting to hit that same level that we hit yesterday. So hopefully the worst is behind us.
Have you seen much damage over what has transpired so far?
No, so far it's largely stayed channelized. We have had some limited backyard flooding in some areas close to the rivers and channels. We did, as a precaution, put out some sandbags in areas that are regularly inundated, and so we're taking it very seriously. But at this point, we haven't seen significant damages.
Your district, I can think of several events that have led to flooding and mudslides, of course, in the district of North Vancouver. What are some lessons that have been learned over those previous events?
We definitely, when we had the event out of October 2023, the flooding in Deep Cove, it definitely taught us a lot of different things we could do differently. We had been building up our infrastructure to better handle those kinds of events, but with the intensity of the storms and the debris coming down, you still need to pre-position equipment to help the pipes do their jobs. And so we do when we roll up for significant atmospheric river events and such. We put spotters around the creeks and rivers, and we may even take the added step of pre-positioning equipment near areas of concern. So we have been actively monitoring the gauges on the Seymour River in particular for the last 48 hours.
Yeah, I've been seeing video from the Seymour River. I've walked around there and hiked around there for sure, and it's stark to see the difference, right? When between summer and when you have an event like this, for sure. Mayor Little, we are asking our audience today what's needed to help homes and communities recover from heavy rains, flooding, and slides as well. What would you say? What's needed further to fill in those gaps when it comes to support and resources?
Probably the biggest thing is awareness. I think as long as people are staying away from the creeks and rivers during this time, then the risk to loss of life is pretty limited. And one thing that people don't think about is that we have some off-leash dog areas in and around the creeks and rivers, and it's probably not a good time to be off-leash. We really highly recommend that you leash your dog up during this time. We've had a couple of instances where dogs have gone in and been swept away, and owners have entered the river to try to give aid to their dogs. This is not a good time to have your dog off-leash near a creek or a river. Pull them back, keep the leash on, respect the space between the creeks and the rivers, and I'm sure everybody will get home fine.
We've certainly seen the warnings from North Shore Rescue as well when it comes to being around waterways and on the trails. Mayor Little, thank you very much for taking the time with us. And yes, stay safe. I know you're keeping watch, and hopefully things do not get any worse. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Mike Little is the mayor of the District of North Vancouver. It is now 12:13 here on BC Today. We are taking your calls as well. What do you think is needed so that homes and communities can recover from events like this, from heavy rains, from flooding, and from slides as well? Our numbers are 604-669-3733. That's 604-669-3733 or 1-800-825-5950. You can also just hit pound 690 on your cell phone. You can also email bctoday@cbc.ca and let us know what you are seeing in your part of the province as well, in your community. Meanwhile, in the Okanagan-Similkameen, flood concerns still remain in the Similkameen as well. Several evacuation orders remain in place for the regional district there. Downtown Princeton and parts of Carina Avenue and Allison Flats also remain on evacuation alert. More precipitation is in the forecast, both when it comes to rain and snow. So we are taking your calls as well, especially if you're in that area. I'd love to hear from you about what you're seeing and what you think is needed to prepare and to recover. Joining me now is Spencer Coyne, the mayor of Princeton. Good afternoon, Mayor.
Good afternoon.
Can you describe what the situation currently is like in Princeton?
It just started raining again, so it's pretty wet.
What have the last few days been like?
A bit of a roller coaster, to be honest. We weren't expecting the amount of rain that we've gotten, and it's been a little bit hairy.
I can hear you, trying to describe it in as efficiently as you can. When you say it's been a roller coaster, can you describe a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So we had a fairly significant snowpack prior to the rain starting late last week, middle last week. That compounded the flows, so a lot of the modeling, we're reaching the top end of the modeling rather than the middle or the bottom end of it. This has presented us with some challenges where, we have two rivers in Princeton. We have the Similkameen on one side and the Tulameen on the other side. The Tulameen was not supposed to raise as rapidly as it did the first wave, and it came up a lot faster than anticipated, which forced us to put an evacuation alert in place. And then last night, after a day that looked like it was going to be okay, we were put on put on a heavy flow advisory, I guess it was, and we had to put the other half of town on alert as well. So, it's kind of anybody's guess as to what's actually going to happen, depending on how the system rolls through the region.
So what's that like for residents then, dealing with that roller coaster as you've described?
Well, I mean, we still haven't fully recovered from 2021
Yeah.
atmospheric river. Everybody's on edge, including, my own family. So, it just brings back a lot of bad memories, and it's it's a lot to deal with emotionally as well as the physical toll of, you know, not sleeping and whatnot.
Mayor Coyne, I'm sorry that your family is going through it, through this uncertainty and anxiety as well. And you're, of course, fulfilling your role as mayor there. I remember speaking with you during the 2021 flooding in atmospheric river. And certainly you were working around the clock then. What's this like for you personally?
It's the same old, same old. I mean, long nights. We did 20 hours straight in the EOC the first night, and that was on top of a regular workday. And then we last night we were up until about midnight trying to keep the community informed, and the EOC was operational. We kind of stood down a little bit overnight, just a skeleton crew, and today we're monitoring everything closely.
What kind of support have you received from upper levels of government?
So we've been in regular contact with the province. Pre-Oc's been really good, getting things approved. Provincial Emergency Operations Center, getting things approved as fast as they can. It's really long-term planning and long-term solutions need to be found. And the province, they've been good to Princeton. They've been helpful. We just have not gotten that federal support that we all need so badly.
What is that federal support you need?
So, if you remember back, it was a year or so ago, we were all turned down for disaster mitigation funding. So that includes Merritt, myself, our community, and Abbotsford, and we're still waiting for some sort of federal relief. And we don't hear from them. We haven't gotten the support from them. So we're sitting here with a $50 to $80 million diking program for a population of under 3,000, and there's no way for us to fund that ourselves.
So you haven't gotten to the point of starting that program?
No, we did works during the flood last time, and we did a little bit afterwards. We've replaced infrastructure. The province has been great on helping us with our infrastructure replacements and whatnot. But really, we do need that federal component, and Merritt's in the same boat as we are, and so is Abbotsford. And now you're going to see all the way down the Fraser Valley that we need this federal support if we're going to deal with this. And we got to stop thinking this is a one-off. It's not a 1 in 25 year event anymore. This is becoming a regular occurrence. And without somebody from the federal government actually taking notice and coming and talking to us, I don't know where we go from here. And I mean, if I have to host that meeting, I will. I'll invite the Prime Minister and everybody to Princeton. We can all meet here and have that meeting, but it's not happening.
Are you calling on the Prime Minister or a representative, a minister, to come to Princeton?
I would love to call on the Prime Minister and the Minister of Emergency Management to come to Princeton, and I'll bring the mayors together, and we can all sit and talk and see what's really going on here, because this is happening way too often, and they need to be at the table with us.
Have you heard from the Emergency Preparedness Minister, Eleanor Oszewski?
I haven't heard. The only person I've heard from is my local MP, who's going to be here later today.
Okay. We did speak with her yesterday on the early edition on CBC, and Stephen Coyne asked her about recovery funds owed to communities from the 2021 storm and subsequent floods, and here's a clip from that.
And when will that money come?
It will come after processing of various invoices, bills. It's quite a tedious and lengthy process when there are multiple types of damages that are incurred. And so it's a bit of a fluid system, and sometimes it takes some time, not only for the expenses to be verified, but for the province to collect them in the first instance.
Okay, so Mayor Coyne, she's talking there about recovery funds for individuals, for people who need aid. You're talking about the disaster mitigation funding and a diking program that you need funding for, right? These are two separate things.
Yeah, they're two. Well, there are two separate things, but there's also the disaster financial the municipalities get, and that's a federal program that's managed through the province as well. So I mean, and the other part of it, and you hear them talking about the province needs to do this, the province needs to do that. It's a federal program. They lean on the province to manage it for them, but they set out all the rules and whatnot that the province has to follow. So we did apply for the disaster mitigation funding and adaptation funding, but we need a different program. That is a program that is open to everybody across the country, not just those that have who've been through these events. We need a dedicated fund to get everybody back on the same playing field. And right now, the feds haven't come up with that.
Let me take a call here. We're asking our audience to weigh in as well. What do you think is needed for homes and communities to recover from weather events like an atmospheric river flooding? 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, 604-669-3733. You can just hit pound 690 on your cell phone. My guest is the mayor of Princeton, Spencer Coyne, who's saying they have not heard from the federal government, have not heard from the emergency preparedness minister, the federal minister, and nor the prime minister, and he's calling on them to come to Princeton to see what it's like. He's going to speak with the local MP this afternoon, taking your calls on this as well. Anton is on the line from Bowen Island on what's needed to help communities recover. Hi, Anton.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure thing.
Thank you for the mayor being here there as well. My father, it's interesting because I'm originally from a country, the Netherlands, where we had a massive flood in 1953, and after which the government instituted a fund to have that not happen again. And that fund is non-political. So all the waterworks have been built to protect the Netherlands from the North Sea, and the maintenance and the extra heightening that's needed for instance, climate change because of sea level rise has already been done because that fund is always there. I think it's 1 or 2 billion a year. And I think these kind of, what the mayor said, that this is such a massive amount of money, it needs provincial and federal funding, but that needs to be non-political because this is about the protection of people and property. And also interesting, my background is that my father works for one of the water provinces in the Netherlands, and so we were taken on the weekends to all the projects he was working on. He was the head engineer who was responsible for all the waterworks, pumping stations, those kind of things. So I'm quite familiar with the situation, but you need to make it a priority to say we have to protect people and property here, and that needs to be non-political. Because otherwise, you see what happens.
Do you see the politics getting in the way, Anton?
Well, for instance, it's taking far too long. This has to be done fast, and this is a big priority because, as the mayor said, this is not becoming a regular event. So you need to be on it right away.
Anton, thank you very much for the call from Bowen Island. Yes, Mayor Coyne, politics should not be a factor. What do you think?
100%. I mean, I don't know if that's the fact of what's happening or not, but I mean, we feel that way. Merritt and Princeton used to be in the same riding. It was a conservative riding. We're still in conservative ridings. We don't know. Like we don't understand why this has taken so long. It's been 4 years since the 21 atmospheric river, and there's still nothing out there for us.
Okay, and just so I'm clear, are you suggesting that there is kind of a partisan role in this decision making?
Well, it feels that way. You look at the fact that British Columbia during the last round of funding never received a dime. You got to wonder why that is, especially when the atmospheric rivers was one of the largest events in the country's history, and the three main applicants were all denied at the same time.
Okay, certainly something we'll follow up on. on that statement. We'll certainly follow up for reaction to that, Mayor Coyne. Thank you very much. Let's take one last call here from Kevin in Edgewood. Hi, Kevin.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. And I'd like to give my condolences to all those that were that happened in Australia, and to the lady that when the tree fell on. I'd like to give my condolences to that first.
Yes, thank you very much.
Now, why can't the government say, okay, you lost your house in a flood, you lost your house in a forest fire because of a forest fire. Okay, your permits are now free, so you can rebuild your lives and get the permits, and your material, whether it's electrical or not, or wood or whatever, should be half price, so they can get their livelihood back sooner.
Incentives, discounts to help rebuild. Kevin, thank you very much. And when it comes to the impact from 2021, Mayor Coyne, what was it like to rebuild and repair infrastructure? Did people have any help that way?
A little bit. So insurance kind of fell through for most people. We did, just as the caller said, we gave out free building permits and free inspections to get everybody back in their homes as fast as possible. We have no control over the marketplace, so we couldn't do anything about the building costs. But we did do the permits, so everything that was on our side, we tried to make as easy as possible to get people back in their homes. Infrastructure-wise, to date, I think we've done about $20 million in infrastructure repairs since the 21 flood. So,
okay.
Massive amount of work.
Mayor Coyne, thank you very much for your time. All the best, and do stay safe, and thank you for the work you're doing there.
Thank you. Have a good day.
That is Spencer Coyne, Mayor of Princeton. George is calling us now from the cusp. What do communities need to recover? George, go ahead.
They need to have our mayors and the people in the lower echelons, like the Princeton mayor we have on the TV right now, to be less politically correct. They should come out and say the big problem is that the provincial and federal governments are just snowing the common folk with baffle garb. We have huge deficit spending, and so far there's not one iota, one thing to show for it. How come they can't throw a couple billion at rebuilding and upping these dikes in the Similkameen and the Fraser Valley? To me, it's a no-brainer. Just do it,
George, thank you very much. And we will certainly follow up. So what we heard from the mayor of Princeton was that his community applied for this disaster mitigation and adaptation funding. They were denied that, and he was talking about a diking program that they wanted to begin. And yet have not been able to do much work. There has been, from what I understand, some work done, but they have not been able to continue with it for lack of funding. So George, thank you very much for your comments there. bctoday@cbc.ca is our email address. An email here from Randy in Burnaby, who writes, for those affected directly, some for the second time, it's time to consider moving to higher ground. The situation will repeat and maybe even far worse the next time. We haven't heeded the warnings and can't continue to rescue and rebuild. Randy, thank you very much. Our email address again, bctoday@cbc.ca. And we're watching your comments on our TikTok Live. Another email here from Christophe, who writes, it's good you describe the impact of climate change-driven flooding on communities. It would be even better if you pointed out that the damage resulting from climate change is downloaded onto communities and individuals. It is emotionally gripping to hear affected people talk. It is much less popular to point out what causes the suffering. It is the continued burning of fossil fuels. Talk about local consequences, obscures that there are causes for this, and this causes, and those causes are the dominance of fossil fuels. Canada is a significant contributor to climate change. Thank you for your point, Christophe. bctoday@cbc.ca is our email address, and you can send us more of that, your comments there as well. It is 12:30 now. You're with BC Today. I'm Michelle Elliott. Thanks so much for joining us. And we are going to talk about driving in wet winter weather coming up in our next half hour, taking your own tips. How do you stay safe? What are the conditions you're seeing right now? We know that there's snow up in expected up in the higher mountain passes, for example. Communities like around Squamish are dealing with debris on the roads. So talking about safety there and taking your own observations, your experiences today, and your advice as well. We'll be joined by someone from BCAA coming up. Right now, it is time for a CBC News update, and here's Rob Zimmerman.
Good afternoon. A 27-year-old woman is dead after being struck by a falling tree while walking with her 2 children in a Chilliwack park. It happened at around 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon in Island 22 Regional Park. A strong weather system moved through southwestern BC yesterday, bringing powerful wind gusts to the Fraser Valley. And another wave of heavy rain and strong winds is set to hit parts of the south coast today. Winds peaked at more than 100 kilometers an hour yesterday. Meanwhile, 36 properties remain under evacuation orders in Abbotsford due to last week's flooding. 400 are still on alert. And a major conservation project has been announced in the interior where 45,000 hectares of timberland are being transitioned from industry-scale forestry. The Nature Conservancy of Canada says the project to protect the Kootenay forest lands is among the biggest land conservations in Canada. And now the forecast: extreme conditions continue in southern sections of the province with heavy rain or snow in many areas. On the north coast, rain this afternoon with a high of 7, highs around -20 and mainly cloudy in the Peace. In the central interior, including Prince George, periods of snow with a high of 2, highs around 5 degrees with a chance of showers in the Kootenays. In the southern interior, including Kelowna, a few showers with a high of 8. And for Metro Vancouver, Greater Victoria and the Fraser Valley, lots of rain this afternoon, windy in some areas with highs around 10. That's your CBC News update from Vancouver.
Thank you so much, Rob. That is Rob Zimmerman in the CBC Vancouver newsroom. And yes, weather is the top story today in BC. The Squamish Lillooet Regional District remains on alert due to heavy rainfall. Jen Ford is board chair of the Squamish Lillooet Regional District. She's also a city councillor with the resort municipality of Whistler.
Well, we have a lot of rain. We've had our emergency operations center has been activated since December 14th. To keep a really close eye on flooding throughout the region. This is from Lillooet all the way down through Furry Creek. A lot of rain came down, a lot of debris on the roads. I'm out driving myself right now, and there's just a lot of rain. With all of this rain, we're seeing a lot of rockfall. We're seeing a lot of landslide potential. Nothing so far, but Road 40 from Tyotin Lake is closed because of a heavy rockfall, and there is no alternative route into that area. So, the roads are just a mess right now.
The Squamish area is under a rainfall warning. You can expect between 50 and 70 millimeters of total rainfall today and overnight. Now, crews in the district of Squamish have set up a self-serve sandbag station at the north end of Brennan Park Recreation Center. And as you heard, residents are advised to travel carefully and to have a go bag ready as well. It's 12:35 now. You're with BC Today. I'm Michelle Elliott. Well, the heavy rains have certainly affected transportation. Most highways have reopened after last week's atmospheric river, but Highway 3 from Hope to Eastgate at Manning Park remains closed as work continues on debris cleanup and slope and culvert repairs. The Coquitlam and Highway 1 through Fraser Canyon still subject to travel advisories. So keep that in mind. You can check Drive BC for the latest on the roads. And in general, they're wet. The skies are dark, and we're going to take your calls on this too. We're going to be joined by BCAA about winter weather driving and tips as well. And we're taking your own tips for wet weather driving and winter driving. What are the conditions you're seeing right now? You can call us. Just hit pound 690 on your cell phone or dial 1-800-825-5950. 1-800-825-5950. 604-669-3733. Again, 604-669-3733. Or hit pound 690. You can email to bctoday@cbc.ca. We're watching your comments on TikTok as well. Byron emailed us. Ever since moving to BC 15 years ago, I have noticed that in the darker, rainy days of winter, many people are still relying on their automatic daytime lights to come on. But this does not turn on your rear tail lights. Please encourage everyone to actually turn on their head and tail lights so you can be seen, and don't rely on your daytime running lights. As a standard driving tactic, we turn our lights on the minute we get into the car at all times of the year. It just enables you to be more visible on the road. Byron, thank you very much. BC Today at cbc.ca, and visibility certainly is a big concern right now. Daniel Quigley is BCAA's Senior Manager for the Road Assist Fleet and joins me now. Good afternoon, Daniel.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I am well. It's certainly very timely to talk to you today. How would you describe driving conditions?
Certainly, we've seen challenges throughout the last week. Pools of water, standing water, in some cases deep, flooding. We're seeing all the foliage from the trees that have fallen off now becoming, hazards on the streets. Stuff like that has been challenging.
Okay. And when it comes to calls, can you tell me a bit about the call volume?
Yes, we do have call volumes that are affected by adverse weather, obviously. So we are seeing, uptick in tire change calls, some calls for towing, still getting some boosts and whatnot. So calls are affected by weather events, which we do obviously forecast for and prepare for. It's something we're ready for, and it's something we prepare for all year round.
Yeah. What are the problems people have that lead them to call you?
Like I said, some folks are having challenges with tire changes. Some folks are having challenges with tow services. We see, battery boosts. We also do get some emergency calls on the highway, broken down vehicles there, high priority calls, stuff such as that.
Okay. We've been talking about heavy rain, the dark weather as well, the dark environment. Wind has been a factor too. What impact does that have on driving conditions?
Well, it can contribute to loss of control. You certainly don't want to be utilizing your cruise control in high wind, high moisture situations. So refrain from using that cruise control. You want to be in control of that vehicle at all times. Also, just slowing down, keeping safe distances between you and the vehicles in front of you. The posted speed limits are there for ideal conditions, so we have to adjust as per the weather. So just a few items there for everybody to keep in mind while we're navigating this holiday season.
Yeah, absolutely. As things get busier is the expectation, right? And can you comment on the email that I just read from Byron about your relying on your automatic daytime lights, your headlights? And so can you let us know, do you agree? Just turn them on at all times, make sure the rear lights are on as well?
Absolutely, especially in low light situations. We're seeing that for, in particular early morning. Now early evening, it's still dark. It's always a good idea to have your lights on. It creates the situational awareness for not just yourself moving forward, but for the folks behind you as well. So absolutely a great tip from Byron with respect to that regard.
Byron, thank you. And I see more emails coming in to bctoday@cbc.ca. What are your own tips for winter and wet weather driving? What are the conditions you've been seeing over the last week? Give us a call, 604-669-3733, 604-669-3733, or 1-800-825-5950. You can just hit pound 690 as well. Again, our email is bctoday@cbc.ca. And if you are watching us on TikTok, we're watching your comments there as well. Basil is joining us from Port Coquitlam with some tips on winter weather driving. Hi, Basil.
Hi, thanks for the topic. I appreciate Daniel coming from BCAA. I'm sure he's seen a lot of accidents when we do get snow, which is not too frequent.
Right.
But when we do, from people driving downhill and losing total control of their car because they lock their brakes, using the foot pedal and lock their brakes, and therefore if you lock your wheel, you do not have any steering ability, and I'm sure he will concur with that. And so the solution for that is to pump your brakes. And if you have a rear wheel, if you have emergency braking on your rear wheels, then you apply your handbrake, and that will not lock your front wheels, and that allows you to steer and avoid hitting other cars or whoever or whatever. So I think a lot of people don't seem to realize that all their four wheels are locked when they apply their foot brake.
Right. Basil, the pumping the brakes is certainly something I've employed myself. But you're right. We don't see snow here in the Lower Mainland anyway. Don't see snow all that often. But when we do, things can go awry. So thank you very much for the call from Port Coquitlam. That is Basil. Yes. What are your thoughts on that? He's speaking, I think, when the roads are icy, snowy. What can we do with our brakes to ensure we don't lose control?
I absolutely concur. I would take it a step further and also look at the winter tire situation. Right. Winter tires are essential for your safety. One thing to remember, especially with four-wheel drive vehicles, people have this sense of invincibility. Four-wheel drive will help you to accelerate. However, you still have to brake and corner. The braking and cornering piece ties into your winter tires. So having a properly inflated set for a set of four mounted and balanced winter tires in your vehicle is going to improve your road safety drastically, especially going downhill with the braking situation. They take their effect at ambient temperatures of 7 degrees Celsius or below. So even in the Lower Mainland, we can see some lower temperatures coming up next week. You've got your mountain passes such as the Sea to Sky and the Coquitlam. Good set of winter tires. I can't emphasize it enough how much it will help, especially with the braking and cornering, and specifically going downhill gradients. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely right to point out those mountain passes. Hugh in East Van writes, yes, one, get good winter tires, real ones with a mountain symbol on the side. 2, four-wheel drive if you can afford it. If you're on a budget, front-wheel drive. Safer than rear-wheel drive on slippery surfaces. And don't be the leader. Follow someone local who knows the road and give them a respectful amount of distance. And don't forget your phone charger, a blanket. Yeah, really good here. Don't forget your phone charger, a blanket, and some water and energy bars just in case. Hugh, that's a great point as well. Do you want to touch on that? Supplies that you should keep in your car, Daniel?
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree. Packing an emergency kit, having a shovel on hand, flashlight, ice scraper, cell phone charger, possibly a power supply, rechargeable power supply to help. Reflective pop-up cones or triangles are always handy. Tire chains where applicable. Don't forget about warm clothes and boots. And obviously some snacks and some water just to keep you safe throughout anything that you may face.
My guest is Daniel Quigley, who's the senior manager for the Road Assist fleet with BCAA. We are sharing tips for winter and wet weather driving, and Daniel has some tips, and we're taking yours as well on the open line, 604-669-3733, 604-669-3733, or 1-800-825-5950. Some great emails, so we're getting to bctoday@cbc.ca. Bev is calling us from Rosedale. Hi, Bev.
Hi.
Thanks very much for calling in. Yeah, go ahead.
have two concerns. Number one is what I mentioned to your receptionist, and that's the paint on the roads. I drive the highway quite often. We live outside of Chilliwack, and so I'm on that highway a lot at night. And it's almost impossible to see the lines. My husband said since they've started using that environmentally friendly paint, the lines fade so quickly, and they just don't keep up with painting them. And then the second thing, which I just thought of while I was waiting, is those LED lights. They are horrendous when you're driving at night. And some of them are so bright that it just obliterates everything that you're coming towards. So those are my two concerns about driving safely.
And how are you doing in Rosedale? You're near Chilliwack, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
How's it going this last week?
We have a creek in front of our place, and it's come all the way up the lawn. And we have lakefront property in the back now because our backfield drains into the creek. So. But other than that, we're dry, so we're doing all right.
I'm glad to hear it. Bev, thank you very much for the call. Yes. Okay. So Daniel, the paint on the road, the lines on the road. What's the upkeep like? Do you know? And has the visibility of it changed as the material of the paint has changed?
Can't really speak to the paint itself that's on the roadways, but I can speak to the reflectors that they do install in the roadways that help keep us centered in the middle of the road, so you at least know where that one part of the lane is, if you will. And then just to circle back to, again, yes, the lights are so important, even in the daytime. For visibility, I've seen some pretty nasty fog patches myself going over, the Port Mann Bridge in the morning and stuff like that. So it's really about the lights, the safe distances as well. Again, if you're following traffic, keep that safe distance, and that will help you also navigate the lane as well. Also, on most rearview mirrors nowadays, there's a switch you can flip that will go into night mode, which will assist with the lights behind you, so they're not as glaring. So another excellent tip there as well. To stay safe.
If you're in terms of dealing with LED lights, perhaps that as Shay suggested there. Here's an email from Mina who writes, well, the rain and snow show us how necessary it is to move from car dependency to community transit systems that connect to major lines. Yes, Mina, thank you very much. That car dependency. And yes, there was a typo there, and Mina has written back with the correct word. Thank you very much for that. Lots of emails coming in as well. But let's go back to the callers now. And staying in the Fraser Valley, John is joining us from Abbotsford. Hi, John. How are you doing?
Hi, Gloria. Very good.
It's Michelle here.
Michelle, sorry.
No problem.
My tip is to, I've been wearing yellow safety glasses for 40 years. They go over my prescription glasses, Michelle. And I find they are essential for dim conditions, night driving. They really cut through the fog, the rain, and the sleet and allow to see you deeper ahead of you. I just can't rave enough about yellow safety glasses.
Oh, wow. Okay. I have to admit, I'm not familiar with them. John, thank you very much for the call.
Could I add one more thing?
Sure, of course.
My fuel module broke down in my GMC truck on the number 1 the other day, and BCAA picked me up, and the driver said, I don't think I've ever picked anybody up wearing a safety vest.
You were wearing a safety vest?
Right. I always have a safety vest in my truck. You're out of the vehicle. You wear a life jacket in a boat. I highly recommend you have a safety vest in your vehicle when and if you break down.
Sounds very prudent, John. Thank you very much. And I can see Daniel nodding along with that. Yes, safety vest. And can you tell us more about the yellow glasses?
Very interesting. They're possibly a polarized lens, and polarization just helps, like you stated, to help you see a little further, a little more in depth, helps with shades and colors, especially in low light situations. So if you're able, certainly not a bad idea as well. Some great points there. And in terms of the reflective vest, absolutely a wonderful idea to take it a step further than just your cones or your triangles. Having stated that, though, when you are in an emergency road service situation, especially broke down on the side of a roadway or a highway, your safest place to be is actually in the vehicle until the appropriate emergency responders arrive.
That's a really good point to make as well. But on the vest, David wrote us too. It's a good idea to include a high vis vest in your car so you can be seen if you're out of your car. Okay, but again, that good caveat you had there, you are safest in the car waiting for help. Thank you very much. So many good emails coming in. I'm going to try to get through them, okay? It's bctoday@cbc.ca. But right now we have another caller on the line. Vince in Surrey. Yes, what are your winter driving tips?
How are you doing, Michelle?
I am doing very well. Thanks so much for calling in.
I'd like to give some advice to the general public about what kind of vehicle to buy so you can drive to a flooded street. Before you buy the car, you pop up the hood and you locate the alternator. If the alternator is located near the top of the engine, you'll be able to drive through a flooded street at slow speed. If the alternator is hidden underneath the engine, you will get stuck.
Okay.
And that is my advice for the general public.
Vince, good to hear from you. Thank you very much. Daniel, we heard earlier about, four-wheel drive if you can afford it, front wheel if you're on more of a budget. What about this advice from Vince?
Excellent notes from Vince. I would actually even go even further to state, when in doubt, just go around. Driving through water with any type of vehicle, I really wouldn't recommend because, again, you don't know how deep that water actually is. And trying to stay in the lane is going to be impossible without being able to kind of see where you're going. So we do see a lot of calls every year for vehicles that are stranded in amongst those puddles and flooded situations. So the safest bet is to actually just go around, plan a different route, and that would be the best advice we could give in that case.
Yeah, absolutely. You just don't know how deep that's going to be. Certainly a piece of advice we hear every year from BC Hydro as well, right? When we are dealing with water pooling on the roads. Really another good caveat from you, Daniel. Thank you very much. I'm so happy to have you giving the context to all of these tips that we're getting and so glad to share them as well from our audience. Let's head to Penticton now. And Suzanne is calling us. Hi, Suzanne.
Hi there. How are you?
I am very well. What's your tip?
I'm phoning because I've noticed as a driver that at this time of year I have to be really attentive to the sides of the roads because in town or even out of town, people are walking beside the roads on sidewalks or just beside the road. They're wearing dark clothing, and so often they're not wearing anything reflective, anything that is flashing light, anything to draw attention to their presence. And I find that as a driver, that is really, it really puts me on edge because I want to be sure that I don't sideswipe somebody. So
of course.
My advice is to the drivers, but mainly to the pedestrians, be aware that you need to have reflective clothing. You need to be visible at night if you're walking.
Yeah, visibility for pedestrians, vigilance for drivers. Really good tip, Suzanne. Thank you. I know I was thinking of that yesterday as I walked around my neighborhood with my daughter. Certainly had our lights and bright colored clothing on. What would be your piece of advice on that, Daniel?
Absolutely. Anytime you can wear reflective clothing, safety clothing, highly recommended. I see a lot of folks on bicycles wearing the vests. A lot of folks that are avid joggers, the cyclists and joggers really do represent well. And if you notice, even police officers nowadays are wearing the vests when they get out of the car, stuff like that. You'll see all of our BCA road service, emergency road service personnel decked out, and it creates that situational awareness, not just for you, but in general for the motoring public and whatnot, to make them aware of your presence.
T is next from Lady Smith. Hi, T. What would you like to share when it comes to winter driving?
Good afternoon. I had a meeting with the Minister of Transportation a year and a half ago where I put a proposal forward for mandatory driving training. Yes,
Right.
mandatory driving training for everybody, where you learn how to drive in dark and learn to drive in slippery and wet conditions. I spoke to a driving school here on Saturday, and she was all for it. That it's not for her benefit, but for the benefit of the public.
Yeah.
Back in Norway, you can train, you can practice even in the summer on slippery and wet driving.
Okay.
Ministry told me that no, that would be too punitive for the public to do.
And there was a proposal for this then, T?
It was a proposal for them, translated from the Norwegian compendium of driving training. It should be a federal mandate where there was a standard for driving trainers. Now, in BC, you can just go 5 years without any accidents. So you go in and you do your test and you're a driving instructor.
T, thank you very much. Interesting point there about specific skills when it comes to winter driving. T saying there should be mandatory driving training for winter conditions. Can you tell us, I won't ask you to comment on policy, Daniel, but what are the skills that we do need to ensure we have when the weather changes?
Well, it's just knowing your comfort level, number one. So if you're not comfortable in driving in those types of conditions, taking alternative modes of transportation, such as, our TransLink, Coast Mountain, there's a lot of options out there, Uber and whatnot. Also, if you are comfortable in traveling, just again, planning your route, leaving with extra time in mind, knowing where you're going. Another good tip is to let friends or family know where you're going in an approximate ETA. So if you don't arrive at that time, they know to start looking for you, for an example. Also, just the situational awareness piece, driving with respect to the road conditions. If other drivers are driving to conditions, you want to adhere to that, and just be as safe as possible is what we would say.
Very good to speak with you. And as I mentioned, it's very timely, certainly, to have these tips and be able to share them with everybody. Thank you so much for your time, Daniel.
Thank you once again for having us. It's a pleasure to be here.
Daniel Quigley is BCAA's Senior Manager for the Road Assist Fleet. And lots of emails are coming in, and another person saying people don't think that you need those winter tires, but even on the South Coast, you do. Thank you very much for that email as well. We'll go through them for you. BCtoday@cbc.ca. Thank you so much for all of your emails.